next guest is Mell Balment, and she will be with us very shortly. And she's taking the place of Simon Fabian, who unfortunately is unwell today and has been for a few days. So my thoughts go out are with him, and hope that he is feeling better very, very soon. The lovely Mell is just about to join us, and I can't wait to have a discussion with her. I haven't seen her for a couple of years now, and yeah, so I'm excited to learn about what she's been up to. I've been watching her journey. She's been so involved in so many things. She's won awards. She's spoken at various events and summits and all sorts of things. And my goodness, and she has such a journey, and has had such a journey, I should say, to get where she is. And she's just an amazing person. She's very well spoken and an absolute delight to know. And yeah, anyway, it's lovely to see you again. You're looking really well.
Thank you. Yes, it's been a while. So yeah, keen to talk about whatever it is you need to extract from me today.
Okay, well, you are the Empath's Empowerer. Tell me a little bit about what that is and how you help people.
Well, what I discovered along the way was there's empath and there's empathy. And people kind of generally get the two kind of quite naturally a little bit mixed up. So what happens is a lot of people have empathy in business. There's a lot of heart-centered operations. And I love that. That's where I want the world to evolve into more consciousness and less of the masculine way of operating and collaborating in partnerships. But one of the challenges are there's many people amongst us who are empaths who don't realize that they're empaths, or think that they are on some level, but don't fully understand how it's kind of controlling their lives, their decisions, and impacting on their business. So what I love to do is help people who are either in two places. They feel emotional overwhelm, or they suffer from their empathic gifts, and help people identify, master, and command themselves, or people who are so logical and very rational thinking and kind of they don't like doing things that way. They're ready for change. So those are the two kind of ways that I help empaths in business, particularly.
How do you recognize an empath, Mell?
Ooh, it's a simple, but it's a complex answer. So I'll give you the simple way is the most common one is people feel other people and things around them. So they pick up on sensitivities that aren't generated by their own thinking or responses. These sensations happen in our physical being, and they're triggered by external influences. So that's the simple answer. How you identify what those sensors are, that's where it can be a bit trickier, because there's at least 9. At least. There's different schools of thought that can be up to as many as 15, but the most common ones, there's 9. And if you're multisensory empath, which means your senses come from multiple sources, it can be quite hard to understand what's causing our responses, why we're behaving or feeling, or even overwhelmed for no reason. Like, I thought I suffered from anxiety for 40 something years. Then it turned out the whole time I just tuned into other people's emotions and feelings, and my whole world changed.
So, but aren't we all empathetic in some way, rather than being, just empathic?
Yeah, totally. We as babies are all born with. So the simple way of understanding this is our senses. So the easiest one for people to understand is the ones around the face. So we can see, we can hear, we can smell, we can taste. Those are the most common senses that society accepts. What we see is what we believe. What we can taste, although that's a matter of perspective. What one person thinks is sweet, another person doesn't. It's subjective. But those senses that we receive are the indicators that we can tune into things that are beyond our physical body.
So I guess, I often sense other people's feelings. I don't know that I'm a true empath, but, what makes, I guess, the true empath?
As I was saying, we all are born with different sense receptors, and there's no such thing as a true empath. I guess it's how well we've adopted or accepted our receivers. I was just watching a video the other day about a 3-year-old drummer, little 3-year-old.
Oh, was he the one in the orchestra?
Yes, you saw the
Yeah.
same video. And it's like, he hasn't learned in the traditional sense of learning how to understand music and understand rhythm and how it all works together. As a 3-year-old, the logic is very, very restricted. Consequence is definitely not established in that mind. So we're born with, people call them gifts, but some people make those gifts woo-woo and non-acceptable, non-mainstream. So if you're a gifted child, it depends on what the gift is, of whether society thinks that that's an acceptable gift or not. And what I'm trying to do is help people understand, as you said, we're all empathic on some level. What are they? And how can we leverage them? How can we accept them and take away the reasoning? Because our society is built on a certain set of acceptable modes. What if there's more? And science is proving there's more. So I really like blending the science with the spiritual and going, well, actually, it's not even freaking spiritual. This is just a sense that many people, twins, we know, whether some people doubt it or not, doesn't matter. The twins actually know and sense when other things are happening. They've done studies with people in concrete rooms next to one another. When one person was exposed to certain stimulus, the person who's not related can tune into and feels the same emotion as the other person. So it's not just about twins and some sort of emotional connection. This is science. We can sense, and some have just tuned up the dials for particular receptors. Does that help?
Yeah. Being empathic, though, I guess doesn't allows, probably not the right word, but when I can only think about it allows us to absorb other people's negative energies, unfortunately, and so that doesn't help us with living how we want to live. If you live in a toxic relationship, and if you're empathic, you absorb that negativity somehow. I mean, I know I do. I walk into a room and sometimes I can just feel that there's just so much negative energy around the place.
Yeah.
How can we guard ourselves against that?
It's one of my favorite topics, because we don't have to be cursed by our gifts. We don't have to be restricted or isolated or limit what we want to do and how we want to live. I'm an ambivert with a heavy weight on extrovert. So I love being around people. So I get what you're saying. I too can pick up on energy. Sometimes I can't identify who, sometimes I can. And there's easy techniques to help us protect. Would you like me to share a couple?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So I don't know where your audience is with their mindset, but I particularly love speaking to people who do have thoughts about our intentions creates our reality. Whether you want to call it spiritual or manifesting or whatever you want to call it, our minds do actually control our frequencies. So what I like to do is use our mind for good. And the easiest way to do that is by using our imagination. And when we're using our imagination, it's actually shutting down other parts of our awareness. So the imagination overrides the logic. So the easiest imagination that most people have heard of before is using a bubble. So you surround yourself with a bubble and you set the intention that no negativity gets through. Only love, which has no boundaries, can come through my bubble. Or if it's really toxic, you can use shields. I've done that a couple of times. And another favorite, which I don't really use very often unless I'm hiding from someone, I use like Harry Potter's cloak of invisibility. I literally like throw it over myself when there's somebody coming towards me that I don't want to talk to for whatever reason. Maybe I'm just tired or whatever. And the person literally kind of veers away from you. It's so fun to play with this stuff when you start testing and playing. You kind of have a different experience with life.
I often think that when I've, are you still there? You there?
Yes.
Sorry. I often think too that you walk into a room, you can feel that there's some negativity around the place, but yeah, you're right. Sometimes you just don't know what it is, but you can feel it in the room, and it makes me feel really uncomfortable. And yeah, I haven't thought about using a cloak or some sort of a shield against it, because but I will in future.
Yeah, just establish how much of a boundary you want. If it's just a generic, the bubble's really nice because it's soft. The shield is if you're in front of someone who's maybe forcing their business card upon you or telling you stuff that they're not having a discussion with you, they're talking at you. Shields can be quite good for that, and you just make your excuses and get out of there. And cloaks are really good for more generic, don't want to be seen.
So, Mel, how can people use this empathy in their businesses? It's because it's really important. We talked with Andrea Pudding today about using compassion, and people often confuse compassion with empathy, but they're two different things. So how can we use empathy in our business to build better teams, build a better customer base? It's really important to be able to use that skill in our business life.
Completely agree. And yes, you nailed it. There is definitely a difference between compassion and empathy. They're synonymous. They go in the same category. One comment that I've heard a couple of times from particularly rational, logical entrepreneurs is either, I don't need to be any more empathic in my business, I'm already overloaded, or the contrast, there is no place. I don't think that empathy should be included in my business. For whatever reasons. I agree, it does need to be primarily integrated with yourself. And the reason why I say that is, one, you have mastery of yourself, your own thoughts, your own feelings and emotions. When you are empathically aware and what I call empathic intelligence, you know what to trust. You know when a synchronistic moment has arisen that is in alignment for where you want to go, versus sometimes, frustratingly, is a test by universe. Is like, are you sure that you really want this thing? Because here's this thing from the past that you said you didn't want. Are you sure you don't want it? Here's an opportunity to prove and hold fast to the new values or the new boundaries that you're trying to set. For me, having that kind of self-congruent, self-mastery when you're making business decisions, whether you're an angel investor, they very much use their gut instinct to make decisions, as well as rational, logical, curious investigation, due diligence. We're not saying don't do any of those things. but we're saying sometimes there's just a part of us that has a sense and awareness and knowing and intelligence that makes no sense. And it does sometimes override a logical explanation. And that can lead to miraculous, wonderful opportunities that logically just doesn't make sense any other way. You're on mute.
Explaining using empathy in a business, because I often talk about on the podcast about how CEOs, business leaders, managers need to get onto the ground floor. They need to go and speak to the staff members and find out what's happening, because they're the ones that are really running the business at the grassroots. Because without them, you don't have a business unless you want to do everything yourself. And that's the reason you have a team in the first place, is so you don't have to do everything. But how can business leaders use their empathy, to get a more cohesive team?
I think and I deliver workshops on this very thing. There's a lot of naysayers that have to be educated to understand what empathy is and the different levels of it and the different forms it takes, because the bleeding heart absolutely does not have a place in business. That is not how we run any enterprise, from micro up to corporate. How it does serve is to understand your team at a more individual, unique way. There are many different facets, even the way we like to work, the times of days, our chronological clocks and operating systems are very unique. The more you understand empathy, the more you can understand that maybe a conflict or maybe a challenge or maybe a performance issue is none of those things. Maybe it's they just operate in a completely different way. There is no way we would expect Michelangelo to not come in and paint something for us without assuming there are certain needs or requests in order to optimize how he would paint. And that's why artists have writers traditionally, in the music industry. Because if you think of a venue that has 100,000 people coming, and the best way for that artist to get into their creative delivery mode requires on some smells and some visual stimulus and things that isn't going to irritate them. That's not being a diva. That's being the ultimate professional as a creative. Mm-hmm. And if we can understand some of our team players may need some of these things to optimize, because let's talk about it. It's always about ROI, right? So if we can get better ROI by understanding what their needs are, what their sensitivities are, everyone wins. Everyone wins. The employee is better understood and has their needs met. The employer feels they're getting a better productive or efficient output. And the client, whoever that is, or product, or whatever the output of that business is going to function at a better rate. Empathy absolutely is a productivity tool.
Yeah, I so agree with that. I really think that if more businesses took that on board, because I've worked in a lot of businesses where, you just do your work, but they don't care how you're feeling for the day, and they don't care that, perhaps you don't like certain things that are going on in the business because either make you feel uncomfortable, or, you're right about smells, noises, outlook. You might not be facing the right way. Your desk might be not where it makes you feel comfortable, because I don't like my back towards people. I hate that. And I sat in an office where I was back facing to everyone, and I just so hated that, because it just made me feel really, really uncomfortable. And so, employers really need to take that on board and find out what makes their staff members or team members feel uncomfortable.
And on that flip side, I am such an extrovert that I had to sit with my back or my view obscured because I would be paying attention to other people. So for me to focus, I remember early on, like I've been out of the corporate workforce for about 9 years now. And I remember using headphones. Now I had the luxury because I used to transcribe and do dictation. So I used to cheat and put them on even with no dictation happening. So I could tune out for exactly the same ring, because I was told, no, you're not allowed to use headphones, even though they helped me be more focused and more productive. So it's a prime example of employers, bosses, managers not understanding the power of making things optimized for the team.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Now, Mel, you have because the audience doesn't know anything about you. So tell me about you.
Oh, that's a broad question. Would you like me to start somewhere?
Yeah, I guess you've won some recent awards, and you've been doing so many amazing things. Start with maybe last year.
Yeah. Okay. Look, you've literally knocked me off my feet. Okay, I'll work in reverse. So I've been in micro business for myself 8 years now. I'm in my 8th year, and I have done several pivots along that way. And so now I've landed as a quantum healer specializing in empathy. That's been a journey, and the old pivot word, which some people loathe, but anyhow, that I've had to do that in order to understand myself on a deeper level. And as I've integrated my spirituality, my understanding of what my gifts are, the more powerful I've become. And yes, it's made it a little bit muddy for people to know what I've been doing. And, I started as dating, and then I moved into relationships, and people are like, what are you doing now? I'm okay with that. It's not ideal, but I'm okay with that because I've always been a coach, healer, mentor style operator along the way. And by leaning into discovering what my ultimate truth is, my dharma, my calling, my purpose on earth, I've discovered way more talents of my own. And as I've leaned into those, not only are the results getting better for clients, but I'm at more peace and more fulfillment than I've ever been. So each year I'm just getting more and more satisfied with life. Life by design? Absolutely. Yes, please. So to answer your question, I'm a quantum healer that likes to blend the tangibility with the spirituality.
Tell me about some of the awards you've won recently.
Oh, I find this hard to do. Do you see me try and avoid that question?
I know, but you can't. Sorry.
You can. So last year, so I've applied for multiple awards over the last 7 years, and I finished finalist and third a couple of times, but I am quite proud of 3 in particular. So one in 2019 was the top 1% leadership coaches in Australia. And that was for that blending. So my application was very much around doing things differently as an executive and leadership coach. And then I was recognized in the top 10 of quantum healers. Oh, I've got my years mixed up, I think. I think that was 19. One was 19 and one was 20. It doesn't matter. But then last year, I was recognized as International Coach of the Year. So that
I know, isn't that amazing?
Together, yeah, I'm proud.
Yes, so you should be. You've worked really hard for it. I remember you couple of years ago were a little bit floundering about what you wanted to do. And and now look at you now. You just leaps and bounds, and that's such kudos to all your hard work.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Mel, where can people find you if they want to work with you?
I think the best thing to do is go to my resources page, which is Mell B, Mell with 2 L's, mellb.com. Like, I cannot make my website any simpler. mellb.com/resources. On there, not only can you get access to the links to my socials, but there's free stuff. And I'm all about empowering others. And I know the pandemic and the economic shift has had a massive impact. So I try and share as much of my stuff as I can. So in there, there's a bunch of different things that they can get depending on where they're at. I don't know if they're an employee or solopreneur or they have global aspirations. So there's something for everyone on that resource page.
Perfect. Now, I'm asking this same question of everybody today. If you have some words of wisdom that you could share with us, what would they be?
One of my favorite phrases, and it might be the title of my next book, so I say it out there so I can try and claim the IP. You're better than the beliefs you're believing.
Like that.
We believe way too much that's going on between this little chamber and vortex of negativity. Stop it.
And unfortunately, it usually comes from, what people have told us in childhood, and we brought up with these certain beliefs because we've been told them, and they've just continued on, and a lot of us, me included, don't take the time to clear our mind of the negative thoughts, and we still continue to say negative things to ourselves, and the subconscious doesn't know between the truth and a lie, or the truth and a fantasy. It's just it just knows what it's told. So we have to be so careful about how we speak to ourselves. I mean, someone said to me today that be careful how you speak, because if you spoke to your friends like that, you wouldn't you shouldn't speak to yourself like that. So and it's something that we all need to remember, I think.
And the thing about quantum healing is we're addressing what caused those set of negative self-talk phrases in the first place. So if you're addressing those right back to past lives, if that's the case, because we know science has proven our energy essence is recycled. Our DNA, we are inheriting stuff from our parents and our ancestors. Clear that stuff from the past. We don't even need to catch our thinking anymore. It's gone.
Yeah, it's generational stuff is, and it's generational karma is really hard to get rid of.
No, it's not. That's a belief.
Isn't it?
No, it's juicy and fun.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, do tell.
No, it's not hard. I think it can be for some people who maybe don't understand it, or maybe the process isn't quite right for them, because there isn't one style of coaching or healing for everyone, right? We're all unique. So I have combined my processes from 4 different modalities and created my own. And I simplified it. I want to make it really freaking simple so that my clients aren't dependent on me afterwards, and there's no reliving. So one, the codependency on your coach or mentor is not there. They're training to learn how to do it themselves. And it's done in a way that no reliving of trauma has to occur. Because that is a really, really big bugbear of mine. Why would you re-traumatize your client? It's not necessary. It is not necessary anymore. So it's not hard. It is not hard. It can be done in minutes.
Really?
Once you're in the right delta state, yes. You have to get to that stage that's beyond the dreaming. It's just when you're falling asleep, That's theta. You want to go the next step down, which is delta,
Mm.
where your true dream state, but your body, so you're kind of coming in and out of your conscious awareness in the room. That's where it's done, and it's not painful. It's not, you don't have to face the skeletons in your closet, which is one of the biggest fears of my clients. Often
Oh
they have,
yeah, I don't want to be like going to a like psychologist, so they want you to tell everything, and it's like having to relive
yeah,
the
no,
trauma that you went through. And it's bad enough with, because I've got, complex PTSD, and and these thoughts just pop in my head for no reason, some traumatic experience that I've had, and I so hate it because they just pop in for no reason and at the weirdest times.
mhm.
And
Usually at the
yeah,
unhelpful times as well,
yeah, absolutely.
unawares. So we can stop the thoughts ever coming up again because we've what we call reframe. So we take what was a negative situation in whatever time frame, we reframe it then, and so everything going forward that's associated with that is just dissolved. It doesn't happen anymore.
Mm,
So it's a big fear that people have. Often clients have an awareness that there's something about a childhood. Look, I've come from pedophilia, very let's just say unhappy childhood home, but nothing to do with my mom. My mom was wonderful. And there are things that I definitely knew when I started on my healing journey like 20 years ago that I did not want to rehash. And some
mm.
of the therapies and treatments
Yeah, I think
made
that's
me.
why psychology hasn't worked for me, because I just refuse to go back there, and I don't want to. I just
Don't
don't want to
blame
go
you.
back to those feelings. I think they're horrible.
Nope, I don't blame you in the slightest. So no, that's not how quantum works.
Oh, good. Mel, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for filling in for Simon. I would like to chat with you though, because we're both ambassadors for Global Glamping Charities. What is your part that you play within the charity? I'd love to hear about, and for you to share what your knowledge around it.
Yes, I'm glad you asked. So one of the vocal public spokesmen, so somebody who speaks and represents and shares the messages about the global glamping charities when I'm out and about. Obviously, it's my charity of choice when I'm, if I'm ever invited to select, when I'm emceeing or speaking, and proceeds are going to a charity, then my charity of choice. And the reason is because they're doing things differently. I love the concept of thinking outside the box, so using cryptocurrencies or digital currencies and finding solutions like tiny homes to solve very tough problems. Any sort of homelessness, whether it's because of domestic violence, whether it's because of economic homelessness, which is people can no longer afford generally to pay their rent, but sometimes it's mortgages as well. And this is the worst time most of our generation have ever had to experience this after the pandemic, when so many businesses have folded and now we have not enough work. And it's just, I love everything that the global glamping stands for and the alternative strategies that they're creatively bringing into our society. Love it. And I love being a
Yeah,
spokesperson for them.
they support not only my business but my podcast, and they've helped me get out of economic homeless, or the threat of it,
Mm,
because just things became too tough, and I can't thank them enough for it. I'm forever grateful for their support, and
yeah.
yeah, they are my charity of choice as well. So yeah,
Well, I
but
love hearing that firsthand success story. That's wonderful. I'm glad.
yeah, and it's just it's a wonderful concept. Simon has just I don't know, he's an amazing person for doing what he's doing,
Yeah.
and I know he's been in talks with government at different levels, and how we can get you know collaboration with them to get these tiny homes up and going. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a It's a complex issue.
Mm,
You know, we might approve to put a tiny home in our backyard if we've got lots of space, but then the council won't let us.
mm.
Even if we choose to let a stranger onto our property, council won't let us. So it's complex, and there's a lot of creative thinking and alternative new ways, changes to be made. So Simon really is a champion for taking this on board.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. It's really it's wonderful to know that he has such a empathetic person to back him. Mel, thanks again for filling in for Simon. I know he's been very unwell the last few days, so yeah. And thank
No
you for
problem.
sharing about empathy and how we can all be more empathetic and how we can, you know, learn to deal with it in the workplace and you know, find better ways or easier ways to be more empathetic towards our staff members and team members and be, as a leader, be more empathetic.
Yeah, and be empowered instead of being a victim of your gifts and your receptors. It's how do you use it and leverage these knowings and the intuitive hits and use them to make smart business decisions instead of being impacted by it. So yeah.
Lovely. Thank you so much. And I will be in touch very soon.
Okay. Speak to you all
Thanks,
soon.
Mel.
Bye.
Bye. It's just wonderful. My goodness. She's just so full of knowledge and I love her take on empathy. It's just you know, she's come leaps and bounds since I've known her, and I'm glad that she's finally found her niche and yeah, she's very deserving of all the kudos that she receives, because she's just very well versed in what she does. Now my next